Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. This is my take on Open Baffle design speakers, my opinion. So, Baffle, what is that? That's stuff like this, Stuff like this. So, basically, most of the times, I'm not an engineer, but most of the times, as far as I've seen with these types of designs, we have an open cabinet. There isn't this box type of thing that boosts the sound, which keeps it in check, and we have insulation inside and stuff like that, and a lot of crossover filtering. It's a very direct, raw type of design, usually with bigger units and more efficient units. That is usually what you get when you get an open baffle design, and yeah. Very interesting. I think, especially if you're a person listening to certain types of music, I think that this would be very appealing for you. And if you have a certain type of amp in a certain type of room, I think a lot of people would like a solution like this, and it will also perhaps not cost nearly as much as a more bigger speaker that you're looking for, that is more of the traditional, cheaper, closed type of dynamic speakers, as you call them, traditional speakers with a cabinet. So, yeah, my opinions, let's get straight to it. I'm just not very happy about open baffle speakers, I've heard, what I've heard has been raw, unfiltered, not fully integrated sound with put really good potential stuff in bits and pieces. A bit like with the other video that I made with electrostatic speakers. I wouldn't call it as if there's a window of sound that you can't fully tune into. I wouldn't call it like that with electrostatic speakers, but it's almost as if there is a sort of phase type of sound where you're just doing a certain type of thing on a more generalized surface like level, and I feel that bigger units, they use these bigger units because they try to compensate for you not having a cabinet which kind of keeps the sound in check. But because you have bigger units, the problem with that is timing. You have, just when you play complex music passages, especially classical music, and fresh new music in certain categories, it just doesn't feel like it's proper. I think it's very nice when you're listening to certain instrument band type of music, Katie Malua, Dire Straits, Diana Krall, this sort of thing, maybe some Alan Taylor and stuff like that. I think it can sound very good in those cases, but there are some not so good recorded pieces tracks out there that just, I feel, just don't really match Open Baffle that good, and it just, like with everything else in life, you just have to do a proper pairing, and I feel that it just, for me, I feel when you get into an open baffle, you're like simulating a sort of better sound that people think that is good, but it doesn't really dig deep into that sound. That's what I'm trying to say. So, and I think that we do this a lot in hi-fi, not just open baffle, but when we generally try to solve problems, I feel that what we're doing essentially is some form of compensation that just doesn't quite take us to that crazy high level. And I think that most people still, this is just me, I think still most people will like open baffle speakers. I don't think that a lot of people will notice these things that I'm talking about. And it could be that I'm just, kidding myself, that it's just me who has these opinions, and so take that into consideration. But these are the things that I feel is happening. I feel that there's a certain element missing with Open Baffle that where we usually have these sophisticated filters doing their thing with this whole box enclosure thingy, and it's just, when you get used to that box sound, then when you listen to Open Baffle, it can, for some speakers, some people, just not sound right. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong. Let me give you a good analogy. This just came to me. My friend recommended to another friend that he tried Star Trek, to watch Star Trek, and there's these, like, I don't know, 6-7 different Star Trek types. The Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, all of these different ones, original series, whatever. And I told my friend told the other friend that, oh, so you like The Next Generation? That's good. You should then try Voyager. And what that person realized was he didn't like Voyager to start with. But does that mean that Voyager is a bad Star Trek? No, it doesn't. It does not mean that Voyager is a bad Star Trek. It's a totally different crew, totally different type of way of filming Star Trek, totally different priority. But what happens, this is what I'm trying to say. What happens is that you get to love a certain type of crew that has certain personality traits, and they kind of grow with you the more that you watch the series, So this guy, he was watching The Next Generation, which is from around, I don't know, 89, something like that. And he didn't like it so much to start with. It was a bit weak to start with. And then season 2, it really kicked off and became a lot better, And then season 3, better again, and so on and so on. And it had this fantastic ending, So in the end, you're like, oh, your standard has been raised, so you're expecting this fantastic standard of sound. You're mentally looking for stuff certain places. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you get over to something that's good, but in a very different priority, your brain has to kind of adjust, and you start all over. You have to know these new people in this new series, and you have to watch each episode from the start, following the story. And that's difficult. And let me give you a really good example of this. When you're going from Star Trek, The Next Generation, it has a continual story with the same crew that evolves. So when you do something in one episode, it continues on that episode with the next season, for example, And then the next episodes there, you just keep on building on the story. But when you go over to Voyager, the reason why some people don't like Voyager, even though I feel personally it's the best Star Trek out there, it's because it resets. It puts everything in what we call a new time unit, meaning that every time you have one episode that's 45 minutes, you basically just have that one story in that one episode, unless it's a two-parter. Some people don't like that. Some fans that are hardcore don't like that. And I find that to be personally a bit insulting, because I personally feel that Voyager is the best Star Trek because it has a more homey type of feel, and you get this female captain, and she's damn good. I feel that she's damn good. And for me personally, when I watch Voyager, I feel that that's a sort of a family you kind of grow with. When you watch the episode, it gets close to you. Where I feel that the some of the other Star Treks, like The Next Generation, there's a bit more of a we're gonna talk to each other in this way, and do what's right, and have our ethics, and have a high standard, and chest forward and stuff like that. You know, it's a bit more, I would say, a bit more masculine and good in a totally different way, you know. They're both good in their own different way. It's just priority is very different. And that's what I'm trying to say. You have to learn to look at something from a different angle and build it up with time. And for some people, like Ron from New Record Day, you know, he's an Open Baffle kind of guy, and I get it. You know, I would also be an Open Baffle kind of guy if I was in his situation and I was reviewing a lot of book stand speakers in a certain price category. I would also be like him into Open Baffle, but I am not him. I have been exposed to a different part of the world where I've seen some of the craziest gear out there, and I've heard it on not just the most crazy Open Baffle horn speaker, electrostatic speaker, whatever speaker. I've heard it on some really, really good dynamic closed speakers. That's the traditional speakers that we use in hi-fi. And I have to say that the layering, the timing, the depth, the integration is so much easier for you as a rookie, a mid-level person, and a high-level person to reach when you're into that type of sound. So I just feel that, you know, different type of sound for different people, for different amps, for different rooms. That's kind of it, you know, with these different types of speakers. So personally, for me, these are the things that I see. I could be wrong, you know, I could be wrong. I am, though, I would say a very tuned in type of person that takes a lot of stuff into consideration, a very wide array of stuff, and I do think about things very deeply, you know, and also I'm very self-critical. So I'm not that type of person that just like chooses a religion and that's like, it's like this, nothing else can you know get close to that sound. I can mentally, not many other people, I can mentally have room for Open Baffle, electrostatic speakers, dynamic closed speakers, horn speakers. I can mentally have room for that. I know a lot of people that cannot tolerate certain types of speakers, certain types of amps, certain religions of sound, certain cables. But you know, so I still enjoy Open Baffle in a different kind of way. But if I had to choose, I would not go in the Open Baffle direction. That's just me personally. So there's this thing you have to notice. I noticed this especially with the lower quality Open Baffle, and that is that mechanical noise, just like with the DTQWT horn speaker, do-it-yourself speaker that you can make. There is mechanical noise that you're opening yourself up to. And again, some people would probably like that and think that that adds to the sound, you know, because it's more raw, it's more authentic, it's more reactive. Yeah, there's a lot of reaction, you know. There's a lot of openness, there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of certain type of dynamic, and I think it's a kind of a avocado toast type of situation, you know. Either you like avocado toast or you don't. Either you like eating fish or you don't, or you know. I think it's just that kind of thing, and you know, of course, distance to the wall means a lot with Open Baffle speakers. Also, electrostatic speakers, you know, means a hell of a lot. Yeah. Also, personally, I haven't written this down, but I just don't like the look of Open Baffle speakers. You know, there are ugly speakers, and I feel that generally ugly speakers are horn speakers, electrostatic speakers, and Open Baffle speakers. And yeah, some of them actually look pretty damn good. You know, even Open Baffle speakers. Once in a while, I also see one that's like, damn, you know, I would actually like to possibly own that stuff, you know. So yeah. And also this, I have to mention this. I find that a lot of people that use open baffle speakers are usually people that are poor people. Sorry, but most people in hi-fi are pretty damn poor, and I'm not dissing those people, not at all, but I've noticed a trend that especially people that have open baffle speakers are poor. And the reason why I'm saying this is not to mock them, not at all. It's to say that if you choose a, I would call it a faulty design open baffle speaker. I find it a bit faulty. If you choose a sound that is a bit faulty and very raw and direct, and you then, because you're in this price class, because you're this type of user, don't focus on cables, that you're using the most basic cables, which I've seen a lot of people do that have open baffle speakers, you're gonna get this type of viewpoint. Definitely not liking open baffle speakers with a lot of certain type of music. That's what I've experienced. But a lot of people like this stuff because it's cheap. You can make a lot of do-it-yourself projects that are cheap. You don't have to have this cabinet thing. You can access it from the back because it's cheap. A lot of people can just make their own open baffle stuff, and it opens up a big part of the market, big opportunity for a lot of people to try big speakers with a lot of efficient drivers that do a lot of certain type of sound, and I think that's good that it exists. I'm glad that exists, and there are people that are doing that. Just for me personally, no, thank you. Yeah, and I feel this again and again and again when I look at the designs of open baffle speakers, that quite a lot of them lack component quality, they lack cable quality, they lack plug quality, and you really need, I think people need to understand this, when you're running something directly and it doesn't have a crossover filter, it puts a huge demand on your system in that environment to be, pretty damn good. You can easily crash the system by having just a half bad CD player, where I feel that if you have a horn speaker or a normal dynamic speaker, I feel that you can get away with it more. I feel there's a sort of honesty with the open baffle sound that I can understand why a lot of people like it. This type of signature honesty, direct interaction type of thing going on. And to start with, I was also like, whoa, especially you have to notice, it's especially like with electrostatic speakers, you get this raw interaction. It's and you get this window opening and closing, very narrow window, and you want to go ooh, what is this? And if I do this and that with the system, can I get deeper into the picture? I feel it's a bit like that. So yeah, but I find it funny. Every time I visit people that have open baffle speakers, when I go to shows that have open baffle speakers, they are always playing the same music. The Dire Straits, or the small band music where you've got the doom 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 doom. I don't find people playing a lot of music with a lot of traffic in it, with a lot of real instruments happening at the same time. And I feel that just, again, a lot of these systems with open baffle, they just many times aren't, the best amplifiers, especially not the best pre-amplifiers and DACs and stuff like that. It's a bit of an old daddy setup where you're kind of playing it safe, and it's kind of interesting, but you're typically not gonna go past the, Macintosh 275 tube amp with some, I don't know, some cordless cables in a biggish room, and then you have like a lower to medium class turntable or CD or maybe even a streamer. I just don't find a lot of these systems to be super good that have open baffle speakers. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just I haven't visited everybody in the world, but I just feel that there is this trend of people using open baffle speakers that just do certain things in a certain area. Also it's like a trend with Macintosh people, where I've noticed that a lot of people that own Macintosh are people that believe more in authority. So usually they would be an accountant, a doctor, a police officer, those types of people. I've seen that a lot, especially with Macintosh and perhaps over in the Aquaphase direction, because it's just, certain types of people gravitate towards certain types of things. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but that's just my experience, how I have experienced it. Perhaps you've experienced it in a different way. But again, if I wanted to listen to really good open baffle speakers, I've heard really good open baffle speakers. But again, we're in this price range, so that's for me what's good open baffle speakers. And I just don't want to be in that price range when I can get something that's more in this price range. That's how I feel the whole thing is with open baffle. So again, returning to this, a lot of these users that are with open baffle speakers, I feel that they're just generally not, that they're not into solving problems at a higher level. They want the big speakers because they have problems in their room, because they don't find the right amp, because they don't have a proper circuit breaker with a proper earth connection with some proper cables. And I just feel that it's a lot of that clientele that's going on there. So I could be wrong. Maybe it's just my opinion, but that's the impression that I get. And I just feel that often it just becomes this generalized type of sound. But there is potential. It can sound good, especially some few ones, up there, usually in price. And I feel that just generally cabling terminals, the units that I used on Open Baffle could be better. I feel that a lot of time what I hear in those units is that these are traditional units that have a single layer, that are biggish, that just don't integrate properly. And when you have dynamic closed speakers and you have double layer custom made units, I usually find those to be a lot more sophisticated with a lot better micro detail and integration. And I just think I find Open Baffle to be just more of a religion type of sound. So what is it that I wanted to say? I just hope I don't offend anyone, but I just find that Open Baffle for me many times feels like people that just want to buy a speaker that's a lot like Klipsch La Scala or some other big thing with big units, And Klipsch La Scala is a pretty good speaker, It is an impressive speaker, I think a lot of people in the world would like that type of sound, but for me that isn't the real authentic deep type of sound. It's a damn good sound, but I feel that's that type of sound that they're going for when they usually want an open baffle speaker. And you can get a lot of open baffle speakers in this range, the $3 to $20K US dollar range. But I for me personally, I don't like Open Baffle in, especially not in that range. You know, for me, it starts from around 100,000, where Open Baffle starts to be good. It could be less than 100,000, but yeah. But an interesting thing is that I do like the half Open Baffle design. This is what I call half. You know, the Fender Stain 1CI, 2C, and you know, the third one, 3 something model. I feel that those are like half Open Baffle designs, and I get it. Once you have stuff in that class, at that price level, man, are you getting a lot for your money. So Open Baffle design speakers, yeah, I found one that I really like. I still have a Fender Stain 1CI downstairs, you know. That thing only costs like $500 used, you know. It's like, you know, that's nothing for that type of sound, you know. And if you have a room that's 10, 15, 20, 25, perhaps 30 square meters, you know, you can still use a speaker like that and get good sound. But for a good price, and still with a lot of good integration. And I feel that that's the type of sound that I want to hear when I listen to Open Baffle, and not the traditional ones. So yeah, it's the micro details, the integration, the layering, and true depth. That's the problem I have with it. And I feel that there is a Hertz problem with Open Baffle, making it feel as if there's something wrong with the weight and the releasing of the energy. And I feel that because you have an open cabinet design, you know, there isn't really any cabinet, you know. You then have these big units, and when you have these big units, it doesn't do the Hertz properly. It doesn't go, you know, it doesn't feel like it goes properly down in the bass area, and it just feels like the whole sound just gets like from the top to the from the bottom to the top gets kind of squeezed in the middle, and it just goes. You know, it's a bit generalized and a bit just missing a bit here and there. So, and I feel that especially with Open Baffle, it's so easy to make the sound uncontrollably bad, where it just feels like it's pumping, almost farting sound waves out, where it's just not focused and concentrated and has the right weight, and you know, all these things that I mentioned. So but again, you know, we could take some of the cheaper open baffle speakers and they could sound good, but I think there's a higher demand on making Open Baffle sound good, even though that a lot of these speakers are running with efficient drivers, you know. But if you had a really, really good streamer on a cheapish Open Baffle speaker, I think that it could get a hell of a lot better, you know. That's what I've heard. If you had a really good CD player, you know, I think a lot of people just don't think about it. They just think, Open Baffle speaker, okay, I gotta have a decent amp, and then maybe a good DAC, and yeah, and the room, of course. But they just don't think about the basic stuff, you know. And having a really good CD player, a really good turntable, a really good streamer means a lot when you want to control speakers like Open Baffle, electrostats, and horn speakers. If you don't have that, you typically get a very flat, generalized type of sound in many different kinds of ways. So yeah, that's how it usually looks. Not very wife friendly. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the matter. And remember, these are just my considerations. Just, you know, take this into consideration. Don't let it affect your judgment. Just try and perhaps listen for these things that I've mentioned, and that will then help you on your buying decisions. Perhaps you do want Open Baffle after you've watched this video, or some other type of speaker. You decide. this is just me giving my opinions on the matter. So this is me logging off, and like and subscribe if you can.